on this BDW?
That's probably Bruce, maybe.
Okay.
Sitting outside the building?
No.
On the
On the meeting
Oh, okay.
with no microphone and no video. But he's just enjoying the experience. Yeah, everybody loves planning zoning type meetings. They're pretty excited. Yeah.
What did you do it?
I don't know what's happened. I've been saying that here over the last few years that we haven't had enough law and order type stuff in the courtroom. Last 2 weeks have been pretty exciting. I've heard it sounded like I was on a school bus when I was in the 3rd grade. I heard all kinds of neat words that you're not supposed to hear in either one of those.
All right, I believe we are now live, and we will call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Calvert City Board of Adjustments to order as of 5:34, and we will begin this process. First item on our agenda for tonight is approval of the minutes from February 10th special call meeting.
I've reviewed minutes and make motion to accept the minutes.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Yes.
Second it. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the minutes pass. That's the word written. Thank you. All right, and we are back to our favorite old business of the day. Step up.
Well put. Thank you, sir. Is John not here today?
No, he's in Bowling Green. He's supposed to be zooming in, but I don't know if he's there yet.
If you're not. Good evening, Chip Adams here again on behalf of Megafoot Mills. We were here last month. Myself, Mr. Deeds were here in person, just even though everyone else was zooming in, just because it's a little bit easier for us to get things. You know, we had some documents at the last minute, much more of the last minute than we had today, to let everybody see those on the video. Today, we have submitted some from John and I hope that y'all have had the opportunity to see those before, where this time we have some traffic pattern concepts as to what we would propose to do to that. And again, this remains to be an interesting process, because originally Megafoot Mills asked y'all on a very small scale to put a square peg in a round hole, which happened on the first conditional use permit. Then that also happened again on a slightly larger scale. And as we're aware throughout the discussions that we've had since August, that Megafoot Mills has become a bigger business at that location than I think certainly Calvert City thought it would be, and likewise to the owners of that business. And so while I had indicated last month that we would have a conditional use permit here and a lot of other things, now I do not have that today, and here is the reason why. We're kind of, when you're wanting to put a square peg in a round hole, there has to be a foundation. Once we figured out in October that the front of the building could be that which is facing east, that gave us the ability to go to the next level and identify the parking. We now have a traffic pattern that we provided. Mr. Dietz is here to talk about all those issues. And I have Mr. Josh Vernon with, and I can't remember his company, it's just Josh to me.
Urban Fabric.
Urban Fabric, that's it. As the architect design professional on standby. And the last thing I wanted to do is, we've already got Mr. Dietz and his company engaged to come in here with traffic patterns. And if the traffic patterns were not going to be to your approval, then aesthetics would be a waste of my client's time and money. So, you know, if the traffic pattern is going to be approval, we're ready to move to the aesthetics on the back of that building and try to do something, recognizing that were this a standard commercial development, that it could look just like it has forever with all the units and everything else here, but we certainly want to do our part on that as an accommodation. The other thing that is important, and you'll see on the diagrams today, naturally it has the those four truck trailers over in the back corner, which are not there. But it also does not have the small cooler containers that I've had in the future. And I guess that was one of the reasons my client would at least like to make the request, that if the traffic patterns meet your approval, your conditions with the number of parking places based upon my drive-by just a few minutes ago, they had more cars in the parking lot there than anywhere else that was around in that area. And certainly they had ample parking at that point, but would like to request the ability in an emergency situation is that if additional outside coolers could be allowed there, 1 to 2, with an appropriate screening to put around it, much like all the other dumpsters and things in the neighborhood. And with that, if the traffic pattern works, then with y'all, then we're ready to go and come in and present that actual permit application. And I know this is not the typical process that you go through your board. However, like I said at the beginning, this is a square peg in a round hole, and it's a unique situation. And rather than come in with a proposal in the form of a conditional use permit, where I'm gonna have to keep coming back every month and lick the cap over, with me being the unilateral person putting things on the table for you, I've opted, right, wrong, or indifferent, to take an approach where let's work with this together and let's find out what you'll accept. I think we're moving in that right direction. The good thing is there's not going to be any new construction required to function this traffic pattern and things. The only thing we'll be talking about, if you were to approve a conditional use permit, ultimately, as the process goes on, is do the aesthetics meet your approval? And I'm fully confident in my discussions with Josh and being well nigh familiar with his work, he's going to be able to put something together that looks really good.
Hey, Greg,
Yeah.
do you happen to have a copy of that electronically? Because John did not send me one. And if not, would you just snap a picture with your phone and text it to me?
I can do that. I don't have an electronic copy, but I can take a picture. Probably not a good one, but I can take a picture.
While you do that, I'm going to go grab my phone. I'll be right back.
I can handle it
Can
too.
you give me his email address? I
You'll
can
give us your email address.
What's your email address? Will?
Oh, that's great. Just send it to williekearns@gmail.com. WILLIEKERNS@gmail.com.
You got it on your phone?
That's awesome. Thank you.
Lot better than what I have. From Olin Mills.
Dating yourself.
Just look at me, Jim. I'm dated. There's no hiding it.
send. We'll see if he gets it.
Okay.
Are
Awesome.
you outside?
Do what?
Are you outside?
I am outside. I'm in my backyard. It's gonna be. I've got a sick kid inside, but it's gonna be the last day that it's gonna be 60 this week, I think. So I think it's gonna be freezing tomorrow.
Agree. See, out in Omaha, he's got a lot more life than we have here or something.
It does look like where you are, Willie.
He's on the west side of town.
Yeah, you know, that's right.
Agree.
Yeah.
It's the industrial area back there. They light it up.
Oh, yeah.
Little burn off. That's what we got.
So I got it. Hey, I did get it, Bobby. Thank you.
Let's talk traffic patterns.
Got it.
I guess.
Okay, so,
Mike, just sit there.
And again, one of the things about the traffic pattern is it does not show an access from 62, which is likewise would be capable. I believe that's a 6th Street last time. I believe that's correct.
okay, so SK1 is showing where we have 47 parking spaces, all of which are there north of where we want to have those 2 trailers setting. Need to mention the boundary lines that are shown on here. We did the O'Reilly Auto Parts. We had the boundary for O'Reilly Auto Parts. So I just took the plat that Stevenson did and was able to use those boundary lines. So this isn't a boundary survey, but these are close. I bet they're within a foot or so of where they're shown out here. SK2, and then the 47 parking spaces, I believe it's 2 spaces for every of the employees of the largest shift, 1 space for every 2 employees. And I think they said there's around 80 employees or so, is that correct? So
Cumulative as between the shifts.
we need about 40 spaces, we have 47. And that's everything north. I mean, is there possible to put some down along the street? I mean, we could get really creative. This is just using the parking lot as it is.
You say those trailers are gone now?
Yes, sir.
Those are all
But you just said something about parking 2 trailers. What?
if you look at
Loading dock.
SK1, there's two trailers depicted on the east side of the building there to be loaded. We got 2 trailers sitting there. That's what they have now. So right now there's, you see the 2 trailers sitting here on the side of the building.
No, talking about escape one. He's talking about.
They're drawn in black.
They're drawn in black. Those little sketch.
Oh,
Semis.
I
These
see.
are the 2 semis.
They're
that
ghosted
They
in.
come in.
Okay. Okay, I
And
see
we're not
what you're
talking-
talking about.
Earlier, he was talking about the coolers.
Okay,
Which are
uh,
not shown on
Which are
here.
not shown.
okay. So you're just talking about I understand.
Yeah, that's the loading dock area where they're gonna have 2 trailers set.
Or more likely the capability to sit 2 trailers. They typically have 1 there.
One sitting.
SK2, that is where the trucks enter. So that's just showing the truck path coming off the 1523, pulling down that drive, pulling up in there, backing up to the loading dock. Okay, and then everything works.
And it works.
And it works.
And if I may interrupt just a second, Bobby, even if they were to come in off of 62, that same traffic pattern would work as far as the trucks.
I believe so, yeah. Yeah, we did the one where we want them to go, and, Mega Meals just said, this is the way you're supposed to come in, this is the way you're supposed to go out.
So no more trucks backing up on the south side of the building on that southwest corner.
There would be no need for them to do that. They want their loading dock, where, we'd show those trailers. That's where they want to load. So we're showing that their truck can pull it up 1523, come down that drive, back up to that loading dock. And then SK3 is showing that truck pulling out of there and getting back out to 1523. Everything works.
And that's, from a safety standpoint, I would agree that that's the safest way to do that, because you certainly wouldn't want folks pulling out on 62 and turning left, going across multiple lanes. And again, one of the biggest problems we have in today's world is that people choose to follow their GPS rather than their common sense. I see it every day at the judicial building in Callaway County, where random trucks will go down a street that's marked no trucks to go access Ken Lake Foods or Kroger down there, just because that's what their GPS tells them to do. And one of the good things about MegaFit Meals is primarily that truck that they have. The trailer that's sitting out there is that is a trailer that's either owned or leased by FedEx, and a FedEx driver comes in and hooks the tractor to that truck a couple of times a week. So it's going to be easier to condition those folks to abide by the traffic patterns. Whereas it's not like we're going to have every random truck from JB Hunt coming in from all over the country where they're going to not go the same pattern.
And I might add, this truck path, this is one fluid motion. This isn't a guy having to pull up, and then pull up, pull up, back up to get in the space. No, he's pulling this thing in there and he's whipping it right in there, right back out. One fluid motion, no stopping, backing up.
The only limitation is that of the skill of the driver.
Now this loading, unloading, whatever, that we're speaking up here, is that the only place that they use to load or unload trucks?
To my knowledge.
Large trucks, yes. Large trucks, yes. And again, with this pattern, you won't see folks, you shouldn't see folks pulling up to the south side of the building. I mean, if you had a bobtail trailer, because somebody may choose to pull up there and unload a box on a less than truckload type
Were you talking
arrangement.
about
But
coming in where you got the line from?
yes, sir.
Well, I didn't mean to trick you. But the reason I'm asking that, I have to get up about 5 o'clock in the morning every other week to take a kid to Union City, Tennessee to school.
That's a haul.
Last week, and I think the week before that, I think on a Tuesday, last week was, and one before that was first part of the week. Well, it's still dark when I come through that. But on 2 occasions, there at the fire engine place, they had a semi backed in. And the way it was backed in, it had a side door. And they were unloading right there. They had approximately 10 to 6 in the morning. But I did notice this, that if a fire truck had an emergency to come out of there, there is no way.
Was it on the gravel or the asphalt?
What?
Was it on the gravel or the asphalt?
That's on the asphalt.
Asphalt is on, show me exactly where you're talking about.
The trailer was in here.
The trailer was in that area. Well, that's unsatisfactory.
That's twice that I've seen that. And,
Well, they've got some driver that I think.
well, they unloaded from the side. They had the lights on the truck.
Well, and the way to solve that problem is somebody pulls in and does that ever again. The employees who are there at 6 o'clock in the morning says this is not where you park, and some signage could be done to resolve that issue.
But if this is approved, though, you're gonna be constructing a loading dock where they won't be unloaded over there. They'll be at this spot.
Well, the loading dock is a set of doors. It's not your traditional 4-foot high loading dock.
Right.
They
Just using the term.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, that's the days that I was there, that's what trailer was parked. And they were, loading and unloading off that thing right there.
Right. and
So
that's
in
So
other
what-
words, Gary, what you're saying is after they construct the dock, they're not going to be loading at the back towards the fire department whatsoever.
I would say that needs to stop effective as soon as I walk out of this meeting and talk to my clients and say, dang it, don't do that.
I happened to go by there to go to Union City. I live on this side of
Yeah.
town.
Because
And then
loading
I
dock is
see
operational.
several trucks anymore.
Yeah,
still
Whether the
on this
loading
side.
dock exists or not, that shouldn't happen.
Yeah, there's
So-
been no reason for them to do that.
I was gonna say, I will say, Chip, since the last meeting, when I've gone by there, I've noticed that for the majority of the time, they have been pulled over so that the rest of the road, in other words, pulling out of O'Reilly's, is accessible. There's probably been 2 or 3 times that, they've been in the middle of the road, but for the most part, when I've drove by, you could pull out the back of O'Reilly's since the last meeting. So that's been a little helpful.
Well, and just even looking on SK3, you can see a truck backed into the liquor store right there, which I think belongs to Budweiser or Clark Distributing or something. So, even in that circumstance, there are a few issues for pretty much everyone there.
So, well, I guess one question that I have is, and I think you're right, that John was on here for a minute and maybe he hopped off, but I think you're right about parking spaces. I think that we also determined that there is a little bit of retail business. And so, those retail people will have to have a couple of spaces. So what's the front of the building going to look like? If I want to walk in, pull in and buy a MegaFit meal, Like, am I going to have to walk around these trucks? Like, what's the front look like? Is that where I'm gonna come in, or they're gonna be
Yeah,
front doors?
and-
Let's talk about that.
Mr. Curtis, what I would probably recommend is going and taking a look at it once that's the door over there where the retail entrance would be, is where I go into the building whenever I'm going to meet with somebody. And it looks like a storefront.
The south end.
No, I don't go into the south end.
Okay.
Through the east side,
East side.
which would be immediately north of where those trucks are parked. That's the area where I walk into the building every time that I've ever been in there. And it is what I would consider to be. I remember the first time I walked in there after they'd done the revisions, and my response was, wow, this looks nice. When you walk in there, it's nice. It's.
So if everything's gonna be concentrated on what we're thinking is the back side, the front side facing Oak Park Boulevard. So what's the front gonna look like? I mean, that's what
Probably
people will
exactly
see.
like it does right now, which looks pretty good in my opinion.
No, I'm just saying, if that's the front of the building, that's what people will see as they come down or up Oak Park Boulevard.
Okay, you're talking about the new back.
The new back.
It's a little confusing.
It's not a little confusing. It's a lot confusing. That's one of the things that we wanted to make sure the traffic pattern worked before we let Josh work his magic. And I'll endeavor to have Josh here next month to talk about expectations. It may be dealt with some form of, there may be shrubs, there may be other things, screening, whatever it is. Certainly to do what we can, dress it up a little bit, but recognizing when it was all retail, that's what it looked like then for the most part. That is what you saw off of Park Boulevard.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. But I'm trying to get a hold of this. I know we're still talking about this. But right now, say tomorrow, are they unloading or all their trucks there where the loading facility is going to be now? Or are they still doing each end of the bill? I told you about that one, but there's SYSCO, that's like a refrigerator truck. And they're here on this end a lot.
What that is that a short one or a long one?
It's a short one.
Yeah,
That's
short
why I
truck.
brought it up.
Yeah, bobtail. We're just gonna have to tell them, move your truck.
Not allowed to do.
This is not a loading area. That's a fixable problem.
No parking, no loading.
And I would expect that's been told to them before, but sometimes they don't listen when you're coming in there to drop one box or two boxes or what have you. Fixable problem.
Now that other end, I've just seen that twice,
No, and I'm glad you brought that to our attention.
but I'm not by there every day. It's every other week.
But nonetheless, you say if it's happened once is too much.
Well, I've seen it twice.
Well, it's been ongoing. I've pulled fire trucks out of there before on calls.
We'll fix that.
So, I guess, I think what you all have come up with is good. I guess us as a board, guys, we have to still consider, is this appropriate for this zone overall? I mean, before they invest their time and money, before, we have hearings upon hearing. I mean, are discussions about loading docks and semis and that kind of stuff congruent with this zone overall? I mean, is that the correct direction in your mind, Greg? I mean, that's what I think that I need to consider is like, is this all appropriate for a B2?
Well, that's a BOA question. This corner is a B2. This corner is B2.
Correct.
Manufacturing is allowed as a conditional use in a B2. I'm 64, so my memory is something less than ideal. However, I have a vague recollection that when you guys were discussing, and when the Planning Commission was discussing manufacturing in a B2, they were thinking that in some situations, businesses that are even primarily retail have manufacturing that coexists with it, like Funky Monkey, where they're manufacturing little pots and stuff. And remember we had the rock place out there that would come and build rock formations in your backyard for a little park and stuff. They're going to do some pre-construction out there, and the thought was, okay, you don't want a chemical plant in a B2, but some minor manufacturing you might sometimes want to allow in a B2, and so let's make it a conditional use. And then when somebody wants to do something that involves manufacturing in a B2, come in and look at it and see if it fits wherever it is you're wanting to put it.
Yeah.
And so what you're looking at right now is you're right there on the corner. You can almost see, everything except the gas station across the street. You can see the bank building across the street, and you can see the fire department building, and you got Dairy Queen and Great Spirits or whatever it's called, and O'Reilly's, and you've got what used to be the workout place, the little gym, and that's what you're looking at. And so the question now becomes, is what's being proposed in keeping with that particular character of a B2? And it truly is a judgment call. It's not that's why it's a use permit.
So in other words, the planning commission, when they said that, their purpose was that understanding there might be minor manufacturing that would be acceptable in a B2, then I guess then I have to think or consider, would this be minor manufacturing?
And it would depend on, in some spots on B2, if you drive up and down 62, it's not homogeneous.
No.
There's different kinds of stuff. There's Mama D's, and there's the little, well, right now we've got a little trucking place out there that's being discussed as we speak. It's just all kind of different. You got Roy Brown's place out there. You got that little strip going up to the Baptist Health. It's just all, and then you got the church. You just have to kind of look at that area of that B2 strip and think, okay, here's the kind of manufacturing that's being proposed. This is what it's being proposed to look like on the outside. Is that going to be a positive or negative to the other businesses that are located around it?
Mr. Chair.
Just a question on the wording here. I mean, this is food processing.
It's the
So,
manufacturing
we can't-
of food
Okay.
and that's where a little bit of the challenge was when I started this, is I've got 3 blue tank flags that have been on here since August. Where does MegaFit fall? MegaFit meals fall in? Are they a caterer? If so, that's different. Are they manufacturing, processing, and storage, commercial and industrial, other than explosives? Or are they retail sales? They're kind of an amalgamation of all 3 of them, to be quite honest with you. So it is truly the square peg in the round hole, or the octagon trying to go into the triangle hole.
And it definitely started as incidental manufacturing amongst a
going
legitimate
concern
B2
business.
business.
Right.
That has now evolved into more significant food crap manufacturing.
Food manufacturing.
Whatever you want to call it.
Meal manufacturing.
Meal manufacturing.
That's exact. Meal manufacturing is
manufacturing.
what it is. I like that.
So Willie, it truly is. I mean, the sad truth is, you guys are asked, whatever you guys' judgment is as to what belongs on that spot in a B2. Initially, you said, yeah, you're going to have 8 people, and you're going to make, and you're working 3 days a week and you got 2 trucks showing up, sure, that manufacturing is not significant enough to interfere with Dairy Queen and O'Reilly's. Now you got a different one. Okay, well, how is it, but how do you feel about this? And it's a different situation, and you just have to decide.
And yeah, so, I guess I guess us as a board, Darren, Greg, Jim, Gary, like, how do we feel? Like, is this, because that's ultimately, we're the ones who have to come up with that. Do you all have thoughts? Is this congruent?
Well, I think with the traffic problem solved, and anything you do to make the building look better, with the list that we have to go through, yes or no, or if it fits or not, I don't see anything where it's, it's serviced by the city, okay, it's got good traffic, smoke, odors, all that stuff, so I think it is a fit myself.
Chip, you probably said this while ago, and I just couldn't keep up. But the thing that we now know as the front of the building, the side that faces Oak Park.
Yes.
Are they gonna? I haven't paid enormous attention, but I think, aren't there like HVAC and stuff out
Yes,
there?
sir.
See, are they gonna move that somewhere?
I don't
Yeah.
know.
That's my question. Is that really a front if you have HVAC and it's not a front?
Yeah. I don't know. What do you
Well,
think?
and again, that was when we met with the planning commission, is there was a determination that could be considered the front so we could go to the next level.
I just think of a front like, has double doors and a sign and a little office. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of things they can do to that building, make it look like front of the building. We've done a lot of O'Reilly auto parts, and we've gone places where the side of the building was on the street and they wanted to look like the front of the street. And so you can put windows on there that nobody can see out of. There's metal behind it, but it's tinted glass windows with awnings, you got shrubbery. Someone driving by it thinks that's the front of the building.
So it literally looks somewhat retailish.
The reason why I ate as a small child is because my dad figured out how to make metal buildings not look like metal buildings.
So knowing Josh Vernon like I do, he's a good architect. He's very creative. He'll put up some kind of screening in front of the HVAC units. He can add the windows and awnings and do different things in the front of it, or I'm going to call it the front of the building to make it look like the front of the building.
So Willie, just for purposes of consideration, I'm going to try to describe best case scenario, and Chip can correct me when I get it wrong. When I'm done, you can correct me. But best case scenario is you got, I don't remember how many people on a given shift, but maybe 30 people on a shift, on a heavy shift or something, 30 people at a time working in this joint. The front of the building, of course, it has that triangle in front of it. So who knows what's going to develop on that property, but at least from Oak Park Boulevard, if you drive by, it looks like a retailish kind of a building. On the back side, you've got parking and truck park and the loading dock.
And a nice looking entrance.
And a decent looking entrance on the back side of the building also. So you got an entrance on the back, and I don't know if you got an entrance on the front or not, but that's what
A
you got.
faux entrance, if nothing else, or something.
Yeah, at least a mock entrance, something. And so you've got a building that kind of looks like at least ambiguous as to what it is. And you've got the work going on inside of a building, a bunch of people doing it, and it's going on for the most part 24 hours a day. At least that's my understanding, is you got 3 shifts. I think
it was 2. Yeah.
2 shifts.
Yeah, it's more of a,
So maybe not in the middle of the night.
I don't think so.
Okay, so more like 40 people on a shift, because I think 80 was their total.
Yes.
So 40 people on a
Well,
shift.
3 funky shifts.
Okay.
Some overlap.
But it's going to be operating longer. Well, I don't know. It might be operating longer than Dairy Queen. If Dairy Queen was operating as long as it ought to be operating, it might be operating a little longer than that.
That's a wild one.
Yeah. And And you're gonna have several cars parked behind it.
Mhm.
You're not gonna have much retail business going on there. From an onlooker's, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but from a passerby's observance, the employees going in and out and the number of cars parked in the parking lot are gonna be probably somewhat similar to what would normally be there if it was truly a retail business. It'd be about the same number of people and cars. It's just that they're there for a reason other than picking up a loaf of bread. They're there to work.
Understood.
And so it's not really retail.
And if it is retail, it can look crummy from Oak Park.
It can look crummy from a Park Boulevard. That's right. Well,
If I may.
but not anymore, because we now have aesthetic review by the planning commission. They can tell you, no, it can't look bad. You have to make it look pretty.
Pre-existing. You know, we can argue about that afterwards, or talk about adoptions or something. I had to poke the bear.
Yeah, thank you. But that seems to me to be most acceptable case scenario. Is that, am I in the right part of the world?
I think so. I think there's definitely still an issue with, yes, the one truck that they're loading constantly during the week that then ships out with FedEx sits in that spot that's drawn. But the delivery trucks that are providing groceries, that are providing whatever else they're providing, are hitting on the ends of the buildings and in where they don't belong.
I will not
Operating out of that.
I will not use my lawyer words since we're in a public meeting, but the way that I will convey that would include my lawyer word. Resolve the pick up and drop off stuff, and you do it at the same place all the time. And if somebody comes in and tries to do it by the fire department or on the access road, tell them to put the car in drive, back it into our loading area and deal with it that way. If they go out there and get the side door open, close it up. Pull in there and do that.
And
with
You
condition-
saying that I should go in there?
No.
This client.
No. Sir, I would relish the opportunity to be out there at 6 o'clock in the morning and tell people that sounds like fun to me. I mean, nobody listens to anything that I say anyway, at home or at work or with my
That
kids.
time of the morning, they work around the clock.
Well, trucks, you know, when you've got a long haul truck, sometimes they'll come in middle of the night and they'll park somewhere. You know, who the heck knows? So
As a part of my best case scenario, there's gonna be a little bit, it's gonna look a little other than retail, because it's gonna have some substantial signage and that pathway for getting in there and turning your truck around. We're gonna have to mark that probably.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have you can't park and unload here signs. You're
Yeah.
gonna have some signage that's gonna be a little different than you would see in a normal retail situation.
well, and to that end, you know, the truck, because of the way that parking lot is going to be set up, I mean, the truck path is many times where I park whenever I go to meet with them there. There's going to have, the truck path is going to have to be marked to some degree. And that way, you know, if they choose not to read, you know, we'll just have to go correct them.
Yeah.
So, but I think, you know, maybe marking the truck path with some,
Well, right now, there's parking stalls parked there, so what they really need to do is seal the parking lot
and
and then
that makes-
restripe.
that needs to happen anyway, as a matter of fact.
Is part of what you're contemplating right now, are there gonna be still any trailers and stuff sitting outside? Because that's like cooling trailers. kind
That
of
was
stuff
the one
outside.
request because, you know, one of the things, as you know as well as I do, when you've got a client and they've got somebody that they want to accommodate. I've said over and over and over again to all of them is like, is there a circumstance where you would need an outdoor cooler, which is basically a half a container pretty much. It's not like a trailer. It's basically a half of a full-size container
Yeah, we've
with-
seen them. They've got them. They've had them.
with a reefer out there. I mean, probably 1, 2, 3, or 4 sitting out there right now. Getting the new cooler in the building was gonna obviate the need for so many of them. However, they said, yeah, we don't need the coolers. Yeah, we don't need the coolers. I said, come on, man. Do you need the coolers? He goes, certain times of the year, I'd sure like to have 1, 1.5 of them. Just because of overflow. I said, don't commit to something that you can't live with. And so that's why I said at the beginning, to have the capability of have a 1 or more of those storage coolers, because I think that's the difference between them staying where they are and them potentially looking to expand the operation somewhere else.
When you talked about that earlier, you said the north side of the building.
If I said the north side, I was grossly incorrect. I meant to say the south side, where they are now,
Yeah, southeast side of the building.
southeast side of the building. And that's something that could be rather
On this
easy.
picture, are they?
Oh, no, they're not on this picture.
I think they do show up on there.
And not,
So there's something there.
I think,
Where's that FedEx truck? Is that the FedEx truck?
no, the FedEx trailer's not there, but there are some coolers. I think that's just the way the sidewalk got lit up on that. But they were right there in that area,
Yeah.
2 small coolers. And
That's where they
Greg, I
are.
want to go ahead and drop, they're about like that. They're about half the size of one of these. Half the size of a full 53-foot trailer. But there was 1, 2, or 3 of those, but that's something that could rather easily be screened right here, much like you screen a dumpster pad.
It just wouldn't work at all on the north end, because that's,
No,
no.
well, because of the slope, they couldn't put anything there. Plus, it would create a bigger problem for the fire department, I expect, because people would still come in there and mess
Well,
things up.
at the property
But
line.
speaking of the fire department, if I could make one request, I'm retired from the fire department, but before you go putting in false doors and windows, could you check with the fire department? Because
I've
I
never
never
seen
seen
them
making
put
a
in a
late night
door.
call and trying to get in a false door.
Yeah, I've never, all the times I've ever seen it, they did not put in a false door, false window.
Now, even
Not
windows,
those.
we make entry in windows too, so you can just check with the fire chief.
Yeah.
Tim Davis.
Yeah,
Okay.
Or call 911. Call 911, tell them, tell them.
Yeah, we're myself out on false door.
Yeah, as you think about, those storage containers look industrial. They don't look retail. They don't look retail. So that would be something that you would, get your architect or whoever,
but it could be they could be
Yeah.
screened much like a dumpster pad.
you would want to do that. What this group started talking about back in September was build another little building, build you a little storage building of some kind and refrigerate it and use that, because that doesn't look in, that looks much more retail than it does industrial.
Well, and one of the things that I'm, whenever we were talking about the need for the storage trailers, when I had an in-depth discussion with my client about that, that was before the cooler was delivered and installed in the building.
Right.
And so now that they have a couple of months since, I think that thing got installed right before Christmas. So now they may have a better track record of how essential those cooler trailers or cooler containers are. So, or reefer containers, well, not reefer, but
Well, that's the only, so far, and again, I don't even have a vote. I'm not even on this board. But
you're not.
come on now.
We let him hang out.
I'm just trying to hang out with the cool kids. But those
Wrong crowd.
are the only industrial-ish looking thing. We're talking about converting everything else
Right.
to make it, to try to make it look as retail as possible. But a refrigerator, what are those things?
They're not as obnoxious as a 53-foot rental. They're obnoxious, but not as obnoxious
But
as a
they just don't, they're not finished. They look like a trailer sitting there. And it's a little, it doesn't look, O'Reilly's wouldn't have one sitting in their park. They might once for a week or for a
Right.
couple days,
But
but that's
not
not
on
gonna be a common thing.
I think we can find a way to screen them and make it where nobody'd ever know except maybe the fire
Maybe put a roof on it, maybe make it look like, make it look like a nail off the building.
Well, then you can't get them out, get them in and out.
Put a big door on the end of it, put a garage door on it.
Okay, you two lawyers, but arguing about how to do this.
The last thing you want is a couple of lawyers designing something.
Yeah.
That's not in the cards. Willie, it's gotten dark where you are.
It has. Luckily, I got a little light.
Man, that
So,
was fast.
guys, I mean, I guess overall, my thoughts are that there is a lot of, I mean, this shows a lot of solving problems and a lot of improvement. At the end of the day, it still widely pushes the boundaries of what would be a conditional use in a B2. I think the improvement shows that, it could still, there's a possibility. I mean, I couldn't answer yes to the questions that we have to answer yes to as it is right now, because of the issues that we've identified. But I mean, I do see lots of improvement. And again, guys, and this is just my philosophy as a board member, we can't set precedents to allow things which we have and we've continued to do. So, I mean, I think that we continue on with the plans, but again, I'm going to make a motion that we begin enforcing the revocation of the conditional use permit while they're making the plans. I mean, we can't, as a board, to me, set a precedent that we can allow something to continue or be in a major violation for 6 months after it was a problem for a year, after it was a problem before that. And that's my personal philosophy. So I will make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
Understanding, guys, that they're going to continue to operate while we enforce the revocation, but I think we need to enforce it. So that's why I make that motion.
We've never talked about the nuts and bolts of that, but you guys probably need to know, just so you know what you're talking about.
That'd be more appropriate for an executive session, wouldn't
Well, it
it?
could.
With us not being in the room before.
Yeah, but under the circumstances, unless you guys want to go into executive session, I think I'd rather just tell you right in open session. Because it's not, because it's easy. I mean, you already know what it is. The way the ordinance is written, does anybody want to go into executive session? I'm not going.
I'm comfortable. No, I'm good. I'm good with you there.
I'm not going into great detail, but here's what you do.
Greg, would you like for us to step out of courtesy of the board?
No, you're fine, Chip. If you see something that I get wrong, feel free to correct me. You will anyway.
I will do that. No, not necessarily.
What happens when somebody violates a conditional use permit and you guys determine that they violated conditional use permit and you're going to enforce? The first thing you do is go to the county attorney's office, because you've got two means of enforcing violations of conditional use permits. One is that it constitutes a violation and the county attorney asks the district judge to impose a fine for every day you continue to violate the ordinance. Now, in this particular case, the county attorney has a conflict and he can't do it. Jason can't do it. So he's going to have to ask the court to appoint a special prosecutor. So the first thing that's got to happen is Jason's got to ask the court to appoint a special prosecutor. Then that special prosecutor has to investigate the situation, gather his information, and then file charges. And those are then presented. That violation, it's a violation, and it's presented to the court, and the court determines whether there's in fact a violation, and if there is, what's the penalty going to be. So it's just a fine, imposes a fine. Now, how long does that take? Well, how long is a piece of string? I don't know. We've got to, you've got to get a special prosecutor appointed first.
That'll take 4 to 6 weeks.
It'll take,
Even on a routine criminal.
it'll take a while. So you're talking about a while before the court could do that. Now, the city also has the right to file an abatement action. That means the city council could get involved and authorize the city to file a civil action requesting an injunction from the circuit court, telling somebody not to go forward, that they got to stop violating something. which is then punishable by contempt if you violate the circuit court order. That's what you're talking about, okay? And we will not, in all likelihood, the civil abatement portion would not be the first thing that you do. The first thing you do is to try to get the county attorney to enforce a violation, to get the court to find a violation and enforce it. So I just wanted you guys to know sort of what you're talking about is that's how these things are enforced. So it's not like you make a finding tonight and tomorrow nobody's going to jail. And
Nobody's quit operating. And but like I said, I just think it's our responsibility as a board to if there are violations and they're brought before us, then we have to enforce them at some point.
well, those things that I just told you, those are not peculiar to this case. That's just general information about how violations are addressed, how they are enforced. So Willie, when Willie made his motion, what he's making a motion is that you guys are instructing John, go contact the prosecutor, and that prosecutor bring charges to a violation. Just so that you know what the outcome of the motion is. That's what it is.
That gets the wheel. That gets the wheel going.
It does. And it's sort, once you get the county attorney involved and he's prosecuting, it's out of our hands. He's prosecuting a violation and we're no longer calling the shots. So, but that's how it's done.
But if it went the civil part of it,
That's
not to be in contempt, they would have to shut down.
right. Yeah, they would have to, yeah. But that's gonna take a little while.
If we found it.
If they're in violation, yeah.
Yeah, it'll take as long as these hearings have probably took to ever get to that point. I understand that.
But if the process is sometimes as hard to stop as it is harder to stop than it is to get started sometimes. So if you think something is going to resolve soon, trying to unscramble that egg is sometimes more difficult than just don't ever crack the shell. So again, it's a judgment call. So far, you guys have determined that there's a violation, and you've notified the parties that you have found there to be a violation. Well, according to the ordinance, every day you operate after you're notified of the violation constitutes a separate offense. So it's kind of an accumulating thing now because you've determined that they're operating without a permit. But you have determined thus far not to proceed with the enforcement act, with one of the enforcement actions. And frankly, you guys don't get to decide whether or not the city files a civil action. That's the council gets to do that. But you guys can tell John to go talk to county attorney. So,
Greg, if I may say one thing, I think Mr. Kearns said, he pretty much hit the nail on the head early on in this meeting. And the question he said is this type of activity appropriate for this zone? And that's what we have been trying to do from the beginning, is trying to maintain that here in a manner that answers that question in the affirmative as far as y'all are concerned. And, had you said in September, October, November, December, January today, no, Megafit Meals is not appropriate for this zone, we're not here. We go on and try to find another adjustment and deal with it in that way. And I think, what I have seen as we have moved along is you have not answered that question yet, but certainly we've been moving in a direction where it appears that we're going to present something where you will be able to say, yes, what you're proposing to do is appropriate for this zone. And that's one of the reasons why we've kind of been accommodating rather than throwing spaghetti up against the wall and see if it sticks. right now, based upon, number one, our meeting last time with the diagrams, today with the traffic plan, and the limited discussion we've had about aesthetics and that how we're going to resolve the people unloading trucks on places that they should not have it, we intend to put something forward that we hope you will say is appropriate for the zone and will add value to Kalamazoo. But Mr. Kearns' question is, it defines, that's what keeps us coming back. If you said that this was not appropriate, we would not have come back.
I agree. That is the threshold question. That is the question.
It is, it
And
is
you
the
guys are
only question.
trying to come up with a way that the answer can be yes.
That is correct.
And right now the board has not decided whether or not what you can propose is gonna meet the standard or not, but
But we're at least moving in this direction where we're still sitting here and we're not saying, we have not given up. We are proceeding cautiously.
And I will concur, Mr. Adams, there's, the questions we have to answer, there's more yeses now than there was 3 months ago, for sure. I can just tell you on my behalf, as it is right now, I would still have some no's, but I agree. I mean, like I said, I think there's been a lot of progress. I think us as a board still can't set precedents, because what if somebody else could? Are we going to let them, go along 6 months while in violation, and then them come back and say, well, you've done it before? We have, we kind of have a responsibility, which is why I made that motion, guys. But no, I mean, I think, Mr. Adams, that there's a lot more yeses than there were, personally, for me.
All right, we do have a motion on the floor. We have a second. All right. And it's fine.
it expires and we go to the next step. You guys try to bring a pretty picture. And we hopefully we move on.
That's where we're going.
Okay, any new business? John's not here. John here?
Yeah.
Those little squares.
Jones in?
John, do we have any other business?
I think he's asleep.
Sorry to wake you. Do you have any other business?
I do think he's asleep.
You're muted,
You're
John.
muted, unmute. We can see that.
Help you? But I really not here. They have a school bus stop.
Hey, Mr. Adams, I really appreciate you and Billy as well.
Hey, thank you, Willie.
With all the renovations.
I guess so.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
This is working.
Especially
It could be working, or they just.
Well, the company-
Could be. If they're high school kids, you would think they're working. If they're big enough that they're high school kids, they're probably working. Because I think that was part of it, is they had an afternoon. Oh, we need to finish
So
this.
there he is.
Let's wrap up this meeting so we can get off the internet. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Willie. Talk to you later.
Welcome.
We are going off air. Thank you.